everyone, it's Karen with Yes Please PaperCrafts. In today's video I'm going to be doing some organizing again, and this time I'm going to be focusing on paper scraps. And I just thought it would be fun to share my process or how I deal with my big pile of scraps that I have left over from my projects. I have been just putting them into these iris boxes and just ignoring it for a while. It's kind of gotten a little bit out of control because I've been really busy with working on things, and I've been making a lot of videos for my YouTube channel for the last 3 months. Or has it been? It's been since July. So July, August, September, almost 4 months. Wow. So I've been just really busy, and I've just been ignoring, you know, some of the things that I used to do on a routine basis. So I have this iris 12 by 12 slim project case that's full of scraps, and then under that I have one of those just regular iris 12 by 12 scrap picking cases, you know, and that's bigger and it's full of stuff. What I usually do though, I have a process for how I deal with scraps, and I kind of developed this probably 3 or 4 years ago, and at that time I was primarily a card maker. So anything that I had that was bigger than 6 by 6, it got cut down into a 6 by 6. And so let me share with you how I store this 6 by 6 scraps. Now, one of the things this past couple of years I've been doing more scrapbooking. If I have a bigger piece like this, I don't cut it into a 6 by 6 anymore. I leave it whatever the size is. I make it like, if I have any kind of like ragged edges or torn, I just cut it down to whatever the best size is. And I store it like that, so I don't cut it down anymore. But if you're a card maker, it's really good just to, you know, cut them down to whatever the biggest size is that you actually do use. And I think that works really well. But this is how I store my 6 by 6 card, or 6 by 6 cardstock and paper. It's a mixture of pattern paper and cardstock. I just keep it all together like this. And when I need a color, I just go to this bin. I actually have 2 of these bins. This one is kind of like a fridge bin, and it's got a handle on the front. And then I have another one that I got from the Container Store that I just thought I would try it out. And it's okay. I don't know that I would buy another one, but let me show you that one as well. Okay, so this is the one from the Container Store. It was more expensive than this bin here. And the thing that's interesting about it is if you have less paper, it's adjustable. So you can take this back piece and move it. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 different positions that you can put it in. And it does have an angle on the back, which is really cool, because it makes your paper like sit against that as and it's like creates a really nice angle that you can use to flip through the paper. And so I have these 2 bins sitting behind me where I usually work, and it's right next to my 12 by 12 flip storage. And I have a video on how I did the 12 by 12 flip storage. If you're interested, I'll put a link to that video in the description below. And but this is, you know, 6 by 6, so anytime I just need a scrap paper or something small, I can just go here and pull out, you know, whatever the section is, or just flip through it and find the paper that I need and just pull that out. Now, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start going through this. I don't think I'll get through all of this today, but I'm just going to make a start on it. I'm going to go through and start taking each piece and deciding if I'm going to leave it about the size it is. I'm going to cut it down to a 6 by 6. And then if it's smaller than a 6 by 6, what I like to do is I will cut it down into a card base, which for me would be like, sometimes I'll do like a 4 by 6, sometimes I'll do a 5 by 7, and then sometimes I'll do a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, depending on the size of the paper that I'm starting with, and I'll do those sizes. Now, if the scrap is smaller than that, then what I like to do is make it into a 3 by 4, and then I'll put it in this bin. And let me go ahead and move these back out of the way. Okay, so I have this bin, and I put, these are all just 3 by 4 papers. I just cut it down to a 3 by 4, and I keep it that size. Now, if it's smaller than a 3 by 4, then I will try to make it into a tag And here's my bin of tags. Now, these are not all tags, but they're at least 2 inches wide because I had these 2 punches from Stampin' Up. There's this one right here that's a scallop punch, and it creates a scallop top tag. And then this one here creates that angle tag. And you can just take any piece of paper that's 2 inches and create a tag. So let me just go ahead and I'll just take this one. You see, that's not 2 inches. I'll have to cut some of these down. So I had a bunch of paper here that I just stuck in here, but here you can see, here's one of the tags I have with the scallop top. And I might have to go through some of these paper that I put in here and make sure it's cut down to the right size, because it does, in order to use this punch, it has to be 2 inches or less. And see, all of these are just slightly too big. So I've been kind of disorganized lately with everything that I have going on. So let me just share with you how to do that, and I'll just grab my paper trimmer here. And what I'm going to do is I'll just cut this down to 2 inches or less. It can be a little bit smaller than 2 inches. And then you're just going to put it into the punch like this and punch it, and it creates the tag. Isn't that cool? So let me go ahead and do another one with the other punch so you can see what that looks like. Find another piece of paper here. But you just need to make sure it's 2 inches or smaller. I got more than one piece of paper. And I have some pretty old paper in here, and I was thinking about, if I don't start using some of this paper, I might go through and purge some of it. Like this one's really pretty. I definitely would use this on a project, and it's a thicker paper. But like this, it's really old, and it's super thin. So something like that, I might be going through here and getting rid of some of that. But that's what I do with all of my paper that's 2 inches, at least 2 inches. Now you see here, this one, I left it as this long so that if I'm working on a project and I want to make it short, I can, but if I want to make it longer, I can. So sometimes if I have a 2-inch strip that's 6 or 7 inches, I'll just leave it that length and just cut the top of it using this tag punch. And so that's what I do with anything that's 2 inches. Now if I have anything less than 2 inches and it's a strip, I will just throw it into this bin. And I use this bin to do sentiments for cards. Like if I want to put a sentiment strip on a card, I might take this and I could do a die cut, or you know, just cut it into a rectangle and emboss a sentiment on it. So I still use this quite a bit, and I love having just this one should actually go over here. I love having just a bin with little bitty scraps. The other thing that I use this bin for is sometimes I like to do projects where I'll take a double-sided sticky adhesive, and then I will just layer pieces of paper onto that and like kind of create a quilted paper. So I do that sometimes, and so having little bitty scraps, it really works really well for me. So what sizes you use and what you want to cut your paper down to, I think it really depends on how you use the paper. You just kind of have to figure out what sizes you would use, and then just go from there and figure out what you want to cut your paper down to. But that's kind of what I do, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start working on this, and I will just speed it up and just so you can kind of see a little bit of the work process. So I think sometimes having a lot of scrap paper around your craft room can be very distracting, and so sometimes it really starts bugging me if I get a lot of it. And this is not all the scrap paper that I have more. So I'm going to need to go around my craft room and kind of just collect it all. And I guess once I empty out these 2 bins, I'll fill them back up with whatever I find in my craft room. And so there are some other things that I was going to kind of share with you. And one thing that I'm doing here is that I am checking to see like what the size of the paper is, if it's like even, because sometimes you have to like cut off a edge that's not like straight, or cut off something that's kind of dog-eared or torn or has marks on it. And so I just go ahead and trim off, you know, things that kind of don't look good, or you know, anything where I cut something out. I just kind of make it into a shape that's a rectangle or a square. And I just use my paper trimmer to measure. I'll start off by looking to see, is it at least 6 inches? And if it is, I'll cut it into a 6 by 6. If it's not, I'll go down to the next size and I'll just keep going down in size until I figure out a size that works. And if I have a piece like, see, even this piece, it was really strange shape. I just start cutting an edge off, get a straight edge, and then try to see what kind of a rectangle I can use, what size rectangle would work. And once I do cut stuff down, so like another thing I'll do is if I have a piece of paper that's fairly large and I cut off 6 by 6 and I still have some left over, I just try to take that paper and make it into another size and just keep, cutting it down until I can get it into one of the sizes that I like to store my paper as. And you can see here I'm making little piles over there, and then the big pieces I'm putting above where I'm actually working, and you can't see those, but anything that's like a 6 by 12 or like 8 by 12 or 8 by 8, those kinds of pieces, I'm keeping those all together, and I don't really make those into any specific size, but I use those for scrapbooking, so I want to keep them as large as I can. So here I'm cutting down a piece of mirror card, and because that's a specialty paper I use for die cutting, I don't really put that into a specific size, but I just cut off any uneven edges. And I also do other shapes, like I did a 3 by 3 square there. Sometimes I'll do a 3 by 3 and a 2 by 2. And sometimes I like to do scrapbook pages where I'm doing a grid layout, and I use those 3 by 3s and 2 by 2s for that. So here I have some paper where I cut the middle out. I probably use some of that paper as a mat, and I'm just going to put that with the larger pieces because I can use that to mat a layout. Okay, now this one, I guess I used this on a layout and I fussy cut some of these clouds out. And so I don't think I would use that paper for anything other than just fussy cutting. So I'm going to cut these up and just cut off all of these and just, kind of separate them and get them to a size where I can put them into one of my die storage. I use these CD sleeves. There's like plastic sleeves. And so I'm just going to cut all these down so that they fit into the sleeve. And I think the sleeve is like a, what size is that? It's like a 5 by 5 square. And so as long as I make all the pieces smaller than a 5 by 5, it'll fit into that little storage sleeve. And then I can, I usually put these kind of close to where I sit when I watch TV. And then when I feel like doing some fussy cutting, I just pull these out and I would sit and fussy cut those. So here I'm cutting off the branding strip. I do that on paper, especially if it's a single-sided paper, because I really don't need that extra branding strip. It probably came out of a paper pad. And I'm going to create a stack over here on the left-hand side of border strips or things that I can turn into a border and anything like long and skinny. So I have a stack of those as well, and I have a place in my craft room where I keep those. And yeah, so this is kind of the process that I use. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could tell y'all about what I'm doing here. I guess, yeah, it's just, I do this like, I guess for maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, and I won't spend a lot of time doing it because, it gets pretty boring, but I usually put some music on or put the TV on and watch some YouTube videos and just sit and cut this paper up, and then once I've got a bunch of it done and I've got a stack, I will go ahead and put it away in the different parts of my craft room where I keep it. And I wanted to say too that sometimes I do throw away pieces of paper. It just depends on the paper, and other times I keep even really small pieces of paper, and I think that it all depends on how well you like the paper. Like if it's your favorite paper, or like that gold and white diagonal stripe is super pretty, and it's got a specialty treatment on it. And I kept even a really small piece of that. So, but if I had something that I didn't really like it that well, or it was a really thin, or it wasn't in very good condition, then I might just throw that away. So I don't keep every single piece of paper, but I do. I love paper, and I just hate to throw it away if I think that I can maybe use it on a project or somehow in my craft room. So you never know, sometimes you'd be surprised at what you end up using. And sometimes I also use scraps of paper to do organizational projects. I created tabs for all my paper pads, and I used that big bin of 3 by 4 scraps that I had, and I probably used a half a bin just doing my paper pads. So yeah, it came in really handy. So sometimes I find things other than scraps of paper when in these piles, and I came across these cut aparts that I guess I had cut apart, but they're really large and they're not going to fit into one of those 5x5 CD sleeves that I have, so I need to figure out a way to store that. But anyway, that's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give this a like. And if you would like to see more videos, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.